So welcome to session 7, which is called present. And this is a session where you stop building and start showing. Because the most common mistake the designers make at this stage is that they talk about what they build instead of actually showing it. And there's a profound difference between those two things that we'll explore the next few minutes. So, in most professional settings, when someone is asked to present their work, they open a slide deck and they describe features, wireframes, and user flows using words and diagrams. And they ask the audience to imagine what the product might look like if it were actually built. And the result is that nobody is fully convinced. Nobody remembers it clearly, and nothing feels real because the audience never saw the real thing. So, in this session, we reverse that pattern entirely because your prototype exists, it is real. And the most powerful thing you can do is put the actual prototype in front of the audience and let the work speak for itself before you say a single word about it. You will deliver a 3-minute live demo, not a presentation, and the structure is fixed. You will state the human problem in 20 seconds, share the key insight in 20 seconds, show the prototype for 44 seconds in silence, share what testing revealed in 30 seconds, and state the next design step in 30 seconds. And the total time is exactly 3 minutes with no exceptions. Your output today is one 3-minute live demo where the prototype is actually shown, the insights are shared, and the next step is stated clearly. And the only rule that governs this entire session is that you open the prototype first and then you speak, not the other way around. Because once the audience sees that something real exists, everything else you say becomes credible. So let me show you exactly what separates a presentation from a demo, because the understanding this difference is what will make your 3 minutes credible and memorable rather than forgettable and abstract. So when you deliver a presentation or give a presentation about a product, you use slides that describes features, copy and user flows, and you ask the audience to imagine what the product might look like if it were actually built. And the result is that credibility depends entirely on the quality of your slides. The audience remembers your pitch, but not your product. And the questions you get tend to be abstract, such as what would you do if the market changes? Because there's nothing concrete for anyone to react to. When you give a live demo of a prototype, you show the actual prototype itself, and the audience sees the real design, the real copy, and the real user flow. And the result is that credibility comes from existence of a testable thing. The audience remembers the product and not your pitch, and the questions become specific, such as what happens when the user does the exact thing, or because there is something real in front of them that they can mentally interact with. Steve Krug, who wrote Rocket Surgery Made Easy, makes this point repeatedly in his work on usability testing, which is that the moment you show something real, the conversation changes from opinion to observation. And that is the shift we are creating in this session today. So, the one rule of this session is stated once and enforced without exception, which is that you open the prototype first and then you speak. And every presenter who opens with slides and says, so what we built has already lost the audience, because the prototype, existing, visible, interactive, and real, is the most credible opening statement you can possibly make. And everything else is just preamble. So here is the 5-part structure you will follow, and the order is non-negotiable because each part does a specific job that the next part depends on. And if you skip or reorder any of these parts, the demo becomes less clear, not more personal. At 0 minutes, I mean, once you start, and 0 seconds, you spend 20 seconds stating the human problem by saying I observed, and then renaming one specific person and one specific situation. So instead of saying first generation students in India, struggle with college, you would say I observed Aryan, who is a 19-year-old first generation engineering student from uh, XYZ place. And every Sunday he calls his father. And when his father asks him, how college is going, Aryan says, fine. And that specificity is what makes the problem credible and valuable. At 20 seconds, you spend 20 seconds sharing the key insight by saving. The surprising thing I discovered was, and the word surprising is load bearing here, because if your insight is not surprising, the audience will not understand why you build what you build. And if it is surprising, they will lean in. So Aryan's team said the surprising thing I discovered was that Aryan is not struggling academically. He is struggling with being his family's story of success, and admitting doubt to anyone he loves would break the story they are carrying for him. Okay. At 40 seconds, you spend uh, 45, you can say, seconds showing the uh, prototype live by saying, here is what we design in response, and then you stop talking entirely. You open the prototype and you let the audience see it for 10 full seconds before saying a single word. And you do not narrate the prototype by saying, so on this screen you can see, but instead you walk through it the way the user would in silence at the user's natural pace. At 1 minute and 25 seconds, you spend 30 seconds sharing what testing revealed by saying we tested with 2 users. The biggest surprise was, and then naming one specific thing that happened, and then saying we changed one specific thing as a result. So Aryan's team said the biggest surprise was that both testers asked who reads their input, even though we assumed anonymity was obvious. And one tester almost closed the prototype at the opening screen. So we added one sentence that says, no one reads what you type, not us, not the college. Okay, so at 1 minute and 55 seconds, you spend 30 seconds stating the next design step by saying, if we had another week, we would, and then naming a specific text action. So Aryan's team said, if we had another week, we would test with one male first year student from a similar background to Aryan, similarly to understand whether the closing message feels earned or presumptuous when they have never met us before. And that specificity is what makes the next step credible and actionable. So the total is 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And when the timer hits 3 minutes, the demo ends with no exceptions, because the ability to communicate a design concept clearly in 3 minutes is a professional skill that requires ruthless prioritization of what actually matters. After each demo, the audience gives feedback, and this feedback is not the detailed feedback grid from session 5, but a 1 minute structured response designed to give the presenter something specific and generative that they can actually use in their next iteration. Because feedback like I liked it, or maybe make it simpler, or I think the idea is interesting, tells the presenter nothing they can act on. Or our goal is to make every piece of feedback actionable. So the first rule is that you describe your experience rather than prescribing a solution. Or instead of saying you should use a different font, you would say the text felt hard to read for me at that size. And this distinction matters because the presenter's job is to interpret your experience, not to be told exactly what to do. And when you own your experience, you give the presenter room to think. The second rule is that every piece of feedback begins with the word I. So you would say, I felt confused, or I noticed, or I was surprised. And this is not just a stylistic convention, because it prevents the feedback from becoming prescriptive and keeps it anchored to a specific experience that actually happened to you, rather than a general statement about what the presenter did wrong. The third rule is that You always begin with one specific thing that worked before raising anything that did not. And this must be concrete rather than vague. So instead of saying it was nice, you would say the moment where the AI asks a question back rather than giving advice felt genuinely different from anything I have seen. And that specificity gives the presenter something they can deliberately keep and build on. The fourth rule is that you end with one genuine question rather than a suggestion. So instead of saying you should test it with older students, you would say, I wondered how this would feel to someone in their third year. Would they still need this? And the reason curiosity is more valuable than prescription is that curiosity opens thinking while prescriptive suggestions close it. And the presenter needs thinking room, not a to-do list from the audience. So the facilitator will in fact model this exact protocol on the first demo, and whatever the facilitator does, the room will follow. So watch carefully for one specific observation from experience and one forward-looking question that opens design thinking with no prescriptions and no suggestions, because that is the standard we are setting for every demo in this session. You have now completed session 7, and what you delivered was not a pitch deck or a concrete description, but a 3-minute live demonstration of something real that you built, tested, iterated, and now showed to an audience who could see it, react to it, and give you feedback that you actually use. The discipline you practice today is the same discipline that professional designers use in every client meeting, stakeholder review, and product demo, which is that you show the work before you talk about it. You let the prototype create credibility before your words do. And you end with a specific next step that demonstrates you know what you do not uh, yet know, and you have a plan to learn it. So at the end of this session, the facilitator will give 3 awards that celebrate what this program actually values, which are the best insight award for the empathy interview that reveals something nobody in the room would have guessed. The most honest iteration award could be the next, okay, for the team that made the hardest change to acknowledge a real problem with their original design, and the biggest pivot award for the team whose testing revealed the deepest mismatch between their assumption and the user's reality, and who responded honestly by documenting that loop back rather than hiding it. So notice that there is no best prototype award, because design thinking is does not optimize for the best looking prototype. It optimizes for the deepest learning. And these 3 awards name exactly what that means in practice. So coming up is the last session, right? We will cover the 5 design thinking mindset shifts, the DT cheat sheet that you can carry with you, and of course, I will reveal the certification part, which is already there. Those of you who already signed up, you must have seen. And the one question you should ask yourself every time you face a new problem for this day forward. Thank you.